Okay, now you all can see the screen here. Now this section we will learn post our SDLC. Once we learn the concept of the software development life cycle or the system development life cycle, this is typically what we basically summarize the SDLC phases, as well as also align the business analyst role with each phases. Again, we tried technically we tried as much as we can, but in the real life situation you may find that the work may happen at a different phase as well, huh? So this could be depending on the organizational standards, depend on their quality criteria or the policies, or the situation or the complexity of the project or the stakeholder preferences. Okay, so but ideally it should be okay. So in the SDLC, if you see, those are the phases are listed at left hand side, and the right hand side the business analyst role. And here the first part is that initiation, that's we're talking about the business need document what we prepare. This is when we talked about a business need, that's an opportunity or the problem is identified. So end of the phase, the business analyst prepares the problem definition or the idea concept of the opportunity. Okay, so this is the document. It may also be called as a business need document, problem definition, and the idea or terms of reference, that is a TOR. Okay, so that has been proposed or prepared and presented. When we say it is prepared and presented to the relevant stakeholders, we may also ask what we call take the feedback and update the document as needed. Okay, so this is the one. The second phase, we talk about the solution scope or the system concept definition. In this case, we define the solution scope, that is identify the scope of the solution in terms of the features and functionalities. Then we identify the capacities in terms of performance, reliability, availability, scalability, environment, and operational needs. And the last part is feasibility and initial risk analysis. So these are the basically activities done before we present the solution and vision document. So in the end of this phase, we must present the solution or the vision document to the stakeholders. Okay, so that's the basically deliverables. In the next phase, we talk about is a business case, that is the return on investment or the cost versus benefit analysis. In this, we prepare the cost versus benefit analysis, that is appropriateness of the studies for the viability and suitability. And we also prepare the feasibility and the profitability of the solution. What are the investment, what are the profits, that is again in terms of the tangible, non-tangible, basically benefits are best calculated. And one part is basically missing. It is, let me just write down here, that is benefit versus risk analysis. So here also the what are the benefits are there, and if we go for that solution, or if we decide to implement a solution, what are the possible benefits are there, and also what are the risk involved. So if the benefit versus risk is also acceptable, then we can basically present that the business case to the sponsor and avail for the funding. So when we talk about preparing the business case will include the purpose of the project or the problem definition, as well as the opportunity definition, and it will include the possible solutions and the high level solution feature, or the functionality, that is a solution vision and scope, and then the last section it will cover the cost versus benefit, and as well as the benefit versus risk analysis. Okay, so this is how we basically will present the business case to the sponsor. Remember, when we add the solution scope, we will get the input from the project manager, the inputs about the cost and the schedule which is required for preparing the business case. In case if you are performing a dual role PMBA, then you will be completing all this work. So this will be your deliverables. Then it goes to the project planning. In terms of the project planning, you will have a requirement planning. That's the plan B approach, and what are the possible deliverables you may have at the end during the project. Okay, and then identify the stakeholders. Okay, then and their roles and responsibilities in the organization, and the project governance, and that is who will be making the decisions, and what kind of communications we will have in the project, and how the decisions are made throughout the project and after the project is implemented. Then we will also take care of the plan for the information management. The information or the data is basically generated during the project, so how it will be handled during and after the project is implemented. Okay, then the last part in the planning will be plan for BA performance. So how the BA performance is basically planned against the organization standards, and how it is basically what are the key performance areas are there, and how it is basically actually assessed, and what are the improvement areas we have identified, and how they can be incorporated in our next projects. Okay, so this project planning is what we talk about is divided into the 4 areas. These are the tasks mentioned in BA planning and monitoring in BABOK version number 3, and that's chapter 3, that's first knowledge area. So all these tasks are basically mentioned. We will go through them in detail. So if you see, these are the tasks, and that is your the task to be completed, and end of the task there are the outputs or the deliverables mentioned. So that we will have to do. That is your basically role during the. But of course, here we have mentioned only in the requirement planning. We are not considered the project planning, because that is out of the scope. That for that you can basically refer PMP book basically. Okay, that is PMBOK. I'm not sure what's the version, maybe it's version number 5 or something. Then next comes to a requirement analysis. In the requirement analysis, what the business analyst have to basically do is you have to basically manage the requirement, that is eliciting the requirement or gathering and communicating, confirming with the respective stakeholders, and analyzing those requirements, scoping those requirements, and documenting the requirements. That is one part. Defining the solution, or what we call presenting those requirements in a structured format. That's your template, or something that is maybe called as a BRD, business requirement document. That's your main deliverable. Preparing and presenting the BRD is important. Obtaining the sign-off from the relevant stakeholders after you receive your feedback and incorporate them into the document. Okay. Then we talk about is verify and validate the solution against the organizational need, strategy, capabilities, and capacity, that is appropriateness. Okay. So these are the basically your deliverables. So this is the work what you will be performing during this phase. Then we talk about the project designing. During the designing, you will be basically analyzing the requirement, preparing the solution requirements, designing through defining the functional requirement, non-functional requirement. Okay, so that's a FRD document, functional requirement document, and supporting the requirement description through the prototyping modeling, that is UML modeling, that could be data modeling, that is a class diagram or activity diagram, or it could be the state diagram, use case catalogs and all. And also you will be verifying the requirement and validating the requirement against the catalog, okay, and supporting the technical team in the solution design and development and the testing activities. So these are your basically prime the functionalities during the project design, okay. Then we are talking about basically development phase. Your role primarily will focus on monitoring the technical work to ensure the development is happening as per the functional requirement. And if there are any queries or any concerns are there, you may address those queries and concerns. And also if it is required you to communicate with the stakeholders, you may basically um, help the technical team to get that particular details. And reviewing and signing of the test scenarios and the test cases. During the development phase, the testing team will basically prepare the test cases, and you as a business analyst may review and sign them off. In some organization, maybe some other person, project manager, or someone from the senior team member in the testing team itself may be signing off. So it depends on the organizational what we call policies and processes, okay. And in the development phase, you may also require to prepare the user manual, and in case if you have to do that, you may prepare, or the users can do them can also do after they complete their UAT test, okay. So depending on the situation, if it is required you to prepare, then you may have to start doing that at this stage. In case you have not completed any use cases, or there may be some what we call low priority requirement or mid priority requirements, you have not basically analyzed them or not modeled them, so you may use this time to basically complete the requirement document, and also complete all those models which are required for you to basically put into a requirement document. Then you may have is a managing the requirement change. This is a big part. During the development phase, you may find there some requirements are basically changed, and you may have to basically ensure that the change is initiated, it has been addressed, and it has been presented, and it obtained the sign off. And again, if it is required, the additional funding that may also have to be initiated. In case if it is not, then you have to create the log and communicate that change to various different platforms. If the change is major, then you may have to inform the change in a steering committee, working committee, and obtain the approval before you go ahead. And if it is, as I said, if it is a major change and if it requires additional funding, you may have to present that into the steering committee and obtain the sign off as well as the funding for the requirement. Then you have is a testing. The testing is basically monitoring the testing activities and actively participating on daily testing development team review meeting. It may happen that during the testing period there may be a requirement or there may be a review meeting with the development team. So number of the bugs identified, number of issues have identified, and how many of them resolved. So that's basically a review meeting, and if some of the issues have not resolved, why they have not resolved, are there any alternate ways of basically addressing them. That way you can guide the team. And also during this time, testing time, you may have to provide the user training to the users who will be involved in the UAT, and also plan and conduct the UAT with the users. And once the UAT is conducted, that is user acceptance test, you can collect the feedback and communicate with the team, okay. And if any major issues are there, they also need to be addressed before the solution goes into implementation phase. So at this stage we have to ensure that we have the sign off from the testing team, we have a sign off from the users, and if there are any other issues are there, you need to basically communicate that with the stakeholders and keep your stakeholders in loop about the testing and about the issues and the bugs and the overall quality of the solution. Okay. And during the implementation phase, if you see, we talk about is roll out the idea or the project or the request, and then we monitor the solution performance in the production environment to ensure that there are no major issues are there, and if there are any, then we have to basically resolve the issues and or the problems during the implementation. Send the status reports to the business stakeholders to ensure that they are aware of basically the development. Okay. And if there are any major issues, they are also in the loop. Okay. Then we talk about is the closeout. Now, even before the closeout, we may also provide the user training to the large user group, and depending on the situation, you may conduct the user training, or you may basically prepare the user manual and send it across and address their queries. That's basically what your role will be. And once the solution is basically completed, the implementation is completed, users have provided their sign off, then you can basically go for closeout. Closeout, there may be post implementation documentations are there, obtaining the sign off from different team members, and to ensure that their basically all the requirements being taken care of in the project, and they are officially signing off the project. Okay. And you can also look into the second part, is that if there is any post implementation review, usually it is, so you may have to basically ensure that post implementation issues are basically also the reviews you can conduct, and that you can basically save as basically as a formal feedback, and then you may have is operation and maintenance phase. In this case, you can basically enrich and enhance the solution by adding and removing the features and functionalities that are needed by the organization and stakeholders. This is ongoing basis. So once the solution is smooth, what we call goes into BAU, that is business as usual, and then at the time you can think about enhancing the solution. So remember that this part is the enhancement and enrichment is part of the life cycle, as long as the solution stays in its life cycle. Okay. Or you can say as long as that till the solution reaches end of its life cycle, that is a termination phase. So till then there may be some the new features, functionalities are coming up, and then they will be in what we call addressed either through a small project or maybe through a small change or something. Okay. So again, your role will again start either as a part of the as a business analyst, or maybe PMBA role or something. Okay. Then comes to the last phase, we talk about the decommissioning, and what is your role is, you may, once it is decided that project goes in the decommissioning phase or termination phase, then your role will be as a business analyst planning for decommissioning. There is a huge planning goes, this itself is a big project depending on the size of the solution, okay, which is going in the decommissioning, and depending on the complexity of the solution, right? And when we talk about that, is basically planning for the decommissioning, informing the relevant stakeholders about the last day of operation and the future actions. Now these are important. How do we basically inform them? What are the details we need to consider is that when the solution will stop functioning, and so that the business team will communicate to the customers or end users that this will stop. So you may have to give the enough time frame so that they basically communicate them, and in case if there is any life cycle required, so we need to basically ensure that they complete the life cycle. Okay, for example, if it is a billing, so that one billing cycle is completed and after that it will be unavailable for them, like that. Then it comes to the archivement requirement, that is a list of the data that needs to be archived and the details of the access right. So who will be accessing, how it will be archived. In that case, you may also consider the hardware and software requirement, and then the archival process. After it is ceased to be in the operations, then you may have to basically disconnect with the other hardware and from the network, and then archive the data, and then release the basically what we call the hardware and networking resources to the team, so that they can use it for new solution. Okay, and you may also have the technical team to archive as per the archival requirement. So you, in this case, in case if you don't have the technical team, you may have want to hire and basically provide that technical details. Okay, then the last point is basically technical team will disconnect the solution from the other network, and then take the backup. It will format the solution, format the disk or and then assign the resources to the other project. This part is important is missed out here. Okay, so this is basically your role within the organization. Okay, question? If there is no question, then I will basically go ahead and talk about the business need document. Give me 1 minute. Oops.